Namaste and welcome to another episode of Waking Up with Jessica, a show that is about soulful exploration through travel, wellness, and spiritual revelations. I am very honored to have a dear friend of mine, the Untouchable Jessica Joan, who is an actress, model, and one of the women who helped take down the NXIVM cult. Fiery Jess, welcome to the show, soul sister.
Thank you, my love. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here.
So I started reading your book. First of all, your birthday party and book launch was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about what happened at your birthday?
Yes, so it was my birthday and also my book launch party, as this is the second edition of my book. And I really wanted to make the most of it by bringing together like-hearted, like-minded people and also use it as an opportunity to give back and highlight something that's really important to me, which is fighting against child sex trafficking. And so it was a whole event brought together by love and prayers and, you know, just an intention to bring people together.
It's really interesting how, like, I'm literally waking up with Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
it's like, when I'm not here, you can, like, just do the show. You can host the show. Like, when I'm traveling somewhere, I could be like, hey, Jess, go.
You're filling Jess for another Jess.
Absolutely. So before we get into what we're going to get into, because it's a lot of heavy stuff, can you just share about how you and I met?
Yes. Oh my God. I love this story because it's so perfect. So we met when I was working at this well-known vegan restaurant, and you came in there with one of your friends, and I was serving you. And at this restaurant, the dishes are named after affirmations.
Yeah.
And then you got the tacos, and the affirmation was, I am transformed.
Yeah.
And I said, you are transformed. And in your spunky way, you're like, I am transformed. Yes.
Yes.
And we just had that moment, like that just soul recognition. And then it was Jessica and Jessica, and we just bonded.
Totally.
And then many different birthdays, many coming together. And also just like the universe, I think, just keeping us in orbit to even right now.
Absolutely. I mean, like, this has been a span of, what, at least 10 years since we've known each other. And there's been periods where I've just dropped off or you just dropped off, and then, like, time will go by, but we always just seem to reconnect after a while.
Absolutely. I mean, with friendships, you know, there's different lessons, seasons, reasons why people are in each other's lives. And I believe that we are on different waves, and sometimes we're riding the same waves. Sometimes someone's chilling on the beach, and, you know, when we're meant to come together, we will. And I feel like you and I are very aligned in what we want to do in the world, and the kind of energy and light and love and also awareness to things.
I was going through the book. Let's start with your childhood. So you grew up in Southern California.
Yes.
And you were, where exactly were you born in LA?
So I technically was born in Anaheim, so in Orange County. So childhood was spent in the OC, and I say that I escaped as soon as I could. But LA was always a part of my life because my mother, she lived in LA, and so I would frequent coming up to LA. So it really resonated with me. And in my childhood, I went to like over 10 different schools all around Orange County.
Wow.
Yeah.
So started young as a gypsy soul.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's just nonstop. Out the womb, just doing things.
Same. We used to move around a lot. I'm like, I kind of like this. Why stay in one place?
Right.
And then I'm still like that.
We got to see all the things.
Seriously. So what was your mother like growing up? What are some of your memories of her?
Well, my mother growing up, she was super beautiful, very charming. she's one of those people that could just look at you and just make you feel like you're the only person in the world. Very charismatic. And I think really at her core, genuinely loving. So that was my first experience of her. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever it is her journey also had her be a narcissist. You know, when being a narcissist, choosing to do whatever she wants that serves her with no regard for what those actions and consequences may be. So my relationship with my mother growing up was very challenging, very much the root of my trauma, abandonment issues. She was a pivotal part in me becoming who I am as well.
What is your relationship with her now?
It is non-existent. However, I do love her. I do pray for her. I don't hold any, guilt but anger or resentment. And I just understand that her soul is on its own journey and chose to go on that path, which made me who I am. Because if she wasn't who she was and didn't make those choices, I wouldn't be who I am.
She's still in LA, or?
She's in many different places, but OC in LA.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have my phone number. I don't have her phone number. It's,
okay.
Yeah.
And your dad, things are great with your dad. That's good.
I love my dad dearly. I really appreciate him as a human and the things that he's done. He and I don't really see each other eye to eye in the same things because the way that I live my life is very different than his conditioning, and he's a very private person and I'm very obviously not a private person.
Yeah.
But I love him and, I appreciate him very much.
That's wonderful. So how did you get the idea that you wanted to be an actress and you wanted to be in the entertainment industry?
Well, childhood, I always loved modeling. Like you could see these childhood photos and I just loved being in front of the camera. It was just this thing. I think I just really enjoyed it and posing and whatnot. And then things with my parents didn't allow for those things to flourish. And when I had all these opportunities, so I always knew I wanted to be in LA and be in entertainment. And acting became something that I wanted to do after reading this book called The Power of the Actor. And I just read about all these different actors and actresses that had been through really traumatic scenarios and turned their pain into art. Yeah. So logically, I thought, oh, I'd be really good at this. I've been through a lot of things. Let me turn it into art.
Yeah, they say that most actors had some sort of like abandonment issues.
I could see that.
Sort of makes sense, right?
Yeah. They were seeking validation. Yeah.
Many other people. Yeah. So it's sort of like you just transcended this pain into art.
Yes. And so now, that's originally why I thought of acting. It was coming from a really logical place and knowing that I would have the paint colors like to pull from. But actually nowadays I'm in it because I'm a storyteller. And I think that you can really change the way people think and feel and inspire them through the art of storytelling.
Sure. There was something that I read in the book that I wanted to talk to you about because we always hear this thing, self-love, love yourself, but what exactly is it? So you wrote, loving yourself has become a cliche, but it is a cliche for a reason. You can't love someone until you love yourself, or how you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. People associate this idea of love with romantic love, but it applies to everything. Family, friendships, community, and yes, romance too, but not exclusively. Most people want to receive all the fruits of what self-love and what love in general brings. What they don't realize is that it's a lot of hard fucking work. in the grand scheme of things, it really shouldn't be. But because we've grown up in a world and a society that has taught us the opposite of love, we've been conditioned in ways that we don't even realize. Mm. And that was powerful. That really spoke to me. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how people can self-love, how they can practice it?
Yes. So the thing about self-love is that a lot of times we might think that we're loving ourselves, right? And we're not realizing to the depth of how we're not. And so it's not just, the very trendy love yourself, just do a face mask, get a massage. Those are aspects of self-care, absolutely. Yeah. But in society, we're taught to feel insecure, inadequate. We're not enough. We need these clothes. We need this lifestyle. We need this partner. And then so we're already brought up to feel not whole and perfect as we are, which it's our birthright. That's actually what we are, which is this love. And so, that's why children are the best. Like they are unconditional with their love. They just show up. They are just the light and the joy. And it's society and the world that shapes this not love.
Sure.
So in order to love yourself, the way that I've found and through my own experience is, something called shadow work, where you go into, you have an inventory of yourself. No one's perfect. We all have our skeletons. We all have our shadows. Yeah. And so instead of shame, blame, and repressing this, it's going into the fire, walking through the fire and going inward and really looking at yourself and seeing why we do certain things where maybe a behavior is creating self-sabotage. Or it's like, okay, you say that, you want to get really fit and healthy, but you're constantly still drinking the soda or eating the food that is not kind to you. It's something I've even experienced with myself with food allergies. And so the way to love yourself is to recognize where are the places that I'm doing things that are not loving and choosing something different, because we get so comfortable with not loving ourselves. It's like when people get into toxic relationships, right? You get addicted to whatever this feeling is, and it might stem from because we didn't get love growing up, right? Or maybe our parents were abusive. So then we think abuse is love because that's how we learn that. So to love yourself is really to unlearn all of the ways that we've been taught to not love ourselves.
Absolutely. So you talked about the Jess detox. What is that? The connection, obviously, I know, what we put into our bodies can affect our mind. Mm-hmm. What are some things that people can do to detoxify the body and stay healthy and clear?
Well, many different things. So something that was really pivotal to my awakening and healing journey was actually colonics. I stand by colonics. Wow. It is amazing because your stomach is they call it the first brain. Because what we don't realize is when we're eating things or putting things in our body that are not in alignment with us being optimal and healthy, and we're going against the body, right?
Sure. Or
poisoning it. People don't realize there's a lot of things that we're poisoning ourselves with. So if we're creating that, we're creating a discomfort in our body where it's if you're extra fatigued, you have inflammation, you're bogged down, and you're that's going to affect your mood. That's going to affect the way that you think. That's going to affect your relationships. And it's so under the surface that you don't realize until you start feeling better. And so for me, when I first did my first colonic, this was I quit drinking. I was going to Erewhon every day. It was just a flip. I started working at the vegan restaurant after being a party girl. So one of my friends told me about a colonic, and I, went and did it. And to me, it was like being a dirty sponge and getting squeezed out and clean and being crisp and yellow again.
Yeah. It's intense. I've had a few in my life. And when you see what actually comes out of you, because it's like in a tube and you can see it coming through. You're like, oh my God, that was like in me.
Right. And that's the thing. If we're avoiding these things and not wanting to know the truth, that's going to perpetuate more of an illusion or something that we're choosing to not be aware of. And it's something if you're not aware of what you're not aware of. Yeah. So you have to want to be aware of what's going on.
Sure.
So that, just doing things like connecting with nature. We have all these EMFs. We're busy scrolling on social media, answering emails, whatever it is. And so another detox is to just ground, connect with nature, get away from all this technology. Take your shoes off, ground, go into the ocean, have an Epsom salt bath.
Yes.
All these things.
So you've always been a seeker, just like me. Mm-hmm. I've always been curious about the world, different religions. I've always just knew that there was something more out there than what we were fed. Mm-hmm. And so I, like you, explored many different religions and self-help books and things like that. Mm-hmm. What are some self-help books and organizations that you were a part of living in LA?
Let's see. Some of the first books that helped me on my path, The Alchemist, of course. I'm like, I'm like, what books do I want to share first? While living in LA, some other things other than just books that was really impactful is I did Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. I've actually done it twice. I'm looking to go again soon.
Where do you do that at?
So they have many locations all over, but in California, I went to 2 locations. There's one in 29 Palms. You got the desert. And then in North Fork, so a little bit central California and very woodsy.
Wow. Yeah. And that's 10 days, no talking, no phone.
They take your phone. You give them your phone. No talking, no writing, no reading, no yoga, no communicating with anyone there even.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you feel after that?
Incredible.
Wow.
Highly sensitive. It just really gets you into a heightened space of awareness that you couldn't even imagine. It's just, you're so slowed down. You're so present with yourself. And the meditation technique in itself, I call it like spiritual surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. And you come back and you just are very conscious.
Any other organizations or things that you've tried in LA? Because there's so many different things that you can get involved in here.
Yeah.
Given your circumstances and basically what I've been through, we just crave community. Mm-hmm. We crave emotional connection, and that's really hard to find. So can you tell us how you got into the NXIVM cult?
Yes. So,
all right, guys. So if you're not familiar with the NXIVM cult, I'm going to educate you all. NXIVM is a cult-like organization in which a harem of sexual slaves were branded with its founder's initials on their pelvises and coerced into having sex with him. First captured mainstream attention in 2017 when several former members shed light on the group's practices. One of them is sitting right here. NXIVM has been described as a pyramid scheme, a sex trafficking operation, a cult, and a sex cult. That's pretty intense shit, Jess.
I know every time I hear it, it's still like, oh yeah, that's right. I was a part of that. I was involved.
Yeah. Like, I have so many questions to ask you.
Yes, I'm here to answer.
Oh my God. I'm like, we need to go into this slow because it's a lot of heaviness, and I know you're still healing from that. So if there's anything that I do bring up and you don't want to talk about, just let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty open, in general. I think it's part of just me being who I am and things that I've been through, and knowing that my life story, NXIVM and pre-NXIVM, I share them so I can help other people.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening and they have no idea what it is, I mean, they sort of have an idea now, how does one get involved?
Well, so the media definitely paints it in a specific way that's very true, but also very salacious, right? So it wasn't, how do I put this? So NXIVM wasn't like your out in the forest cult with like a bunch of people that are just lost. It targeted people that were wanting to be their highest version of themselves, reach their highest human potential. It was based around ethics. I know, it's so funny now. And humanitarianism. And people willing to invest like thousands of dollars to better themselves so they can also help other people. So it was a very specific kind of group. There were people that were millionaire CEOs, Harvard graduates, people in entertainment. And there was even a 12-year-old boy, or 12 or 14, who had Tourette's syndrome. And he had gone through 2 courses, and his mom said that this helped him get rid of his tics. So the proof was very in the pudding. And so it was more branded as a personal development program. So like your Tony Robbins, like your Landmarks and your Scientology. So that's how it attracted people at first. Sure. So I first learned about it through my former best friend, who was a colon hydrotherapist. And a couple of the coaches were her clients. And her and I were both very much into personal development. And so I went to a presentation at her house, that's when, there was India Oxenberg there, Mark Vicente, and a few other people. And the presentation just seemed like this was something that would be really helpful.
Sure. So you signed up for a course.
Yep. Signed up for a course, put down a deposit.
The rest is history.
Yes. Well, actually, this is a thing that most people don't know, is that my boyfriend at the time was, said if they're really trying to help people, it shouldn't cost this much. And then he just kind of got in my head. And then I went online and did some research and, was saying all these cult things. So I got really turned off, as you can imagine. Yeah. And I spoke with India and I said, actually, I want to take my application back and get my deposit. I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. And that's when she said, that's fine. You can talk to Mark and he can figure that out with you. And so Mark actually, he said, I was originally planning on going to Hawaii. That's how I saved the money to take the first course. And he said, you could go to Hawaii. It'll be great. He's like, but when you come back, that feeling, it'll still be there. Ooh. I was just like, oh my God, how does he know about that feeling? Yeah. Right? And so after that, he said, if you don't like it, you're more than welcome. We will give you your money back. Only one person's ever asked for that ever.
How much was it?
It was a little less than $5,000 for the 5-day. So he said, we will give you your money back if you're unhappy. And as far as the things related to a cult, they said that there was someone who took the course who came from a prominent media family, and that the media family was upset because the child thought that their family business was unethical by taking these courses. And so that made sense to me that, here's these media people. They don't want to be exposed. So now they're putting all the slander, right? Mm. And so I figured, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I'll lose a few days of my life. I can get my money back. And yes, the rest is history then. Mm.
So what was that first course like? What was it about?
So the courses were actually called ESP, Executive Success Programs. And it was an intensive. It was here in LA. There were maybe about 30 of us, again, from all different walks of life. And it started at 9 in the morning till sometimes 9 at night.
Wow.
And we got together in groups. We'd watch these videos with Nancy, basically explaining different topics that created critical thinking. It's like, what is a law? You know, and then so we'd go into that and break out in groups. What do you think a law is? And then so we were doing a lot of critical thinking, a lot of different topics, and then also very intimate topics, you know, about our vulnerability, things that we've been through. So as far as community, it's like here I was with all these strangers who now know so much more about me than some of my close friends and vice versa. And it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just connecting in a real space, being seen,
Yeah.
being heard, being held, and also being able to do that for other people as well.
Sure. Like we talked about earlier, just having that emotional connection and that sense of community. So when you find that and you feel like you can just open up, I don't know, it just hits your soul differently.
Absolutely, especially in LA.
Yeah.
So at the time, you know, I was doing really well with modeling and acting, and you know, I had my LA life and getting my $20 smoothies and going out and all the things, but my soul was dying.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't being nourished and fed in the way that I needed. So when I had this, and also people from all walks of life doing well, successful by helping people, I honestly didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I thought you had to become successful and then you can give back and help, not that you could do good. And it's really crazy to think about.
Yeah. So the course, after you finished that course, which was about 5 days, did you sign up for another one, or did you just hang out with these people? Did they become like family to you?
So after the 5-day, it was transformational. It was transformational.
Yeah, transformed.
Yes. And I felt very connected to the people, just connected with myself. And so the 5-day is actually a first part of a 16-day course. So I did sign up to do the rest of the 11-day and in Albany.
Okay, so that's how you got to Albany. And when did you meet Keith?
So first night in Albany, and this was in November of 2016. And I went to a volleyball. India picked me up. She had moved to Albany, and we had become friends now after the course, became very close. She helped me process, you know, after being so like raw emotionally. And she picked us up from the bus stop. We went to the sports barn in Albany, and they just finished playing volleyball, and I met him. And the thing is, when you take this course and you have such a impactful experience, at least for me, I felt immense gratitude that someone created this curriculum that helped me and that has the intention to help other people. So I felt like that Keith was someone who was the same as me, who wanted to help the world and was doing something about it. And so I was actually very emotional when I first met him.
Wow.
Yeah, not that his aura or his presence was astounding, but just the energy that I was projecting onto him because of my experience.
What was his aura and presence like? You know, when you meet someone, you feel something within the first few seconds. What was it like when you first met him?
It honestly wasn't very impressive, you know, but I think that I was just in an initial shock because I painted a picture of him and created these feelings of, you know, gratitude and appreciation and thinking that he stood for something similar. So I was very emotional. But especially after in the times that we'd go on walks and the other interactions I'd have with him, I felt very surprised. It was like very lackluster.
Interesting. And how long were you in Albany?
So I went there, I finished the 11-day course, and then I took another performer's course in Vancouver called The Source, which was Allison Mack's
So
course.
that's how you met Allison.
Oh, I mean,
that was my next question. She's a trip.
Yes.
She's in jail right now, right?
She's been released. She was released a few months ago.
Is she in LA or?
Yeah, like LAOC kind of area with her family.
Is she starting her own organization?
Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I do hope that she, found some healing and some, some shifts, some accountability.
While you were in this cult, when did you start to notice something is not right? The red flags.
So I initially moved out to Albany. I had already joined the Women's Only Secret Society, the VOW. India recruited me into that, and she was my master, and Allison was my grandmaster. And they tried to convince me to move there. But again, like my career was in a good place, and I was, up leveling, and I was like, no, it's okay. Yeah. I'm not interested. But then I went on a walk with Keith, and we had talked about starting a humanitarian T-shirt company. And so now it's like with Keith, it's like if you go on a walk with him, it's like going on a walk with Buddha, right? It's like a big deal. Your whole life's going to change. Yeah. And so he had basically messaged me and said, if you were serious about this T-shirt company, the sooner you come back, the better. And so I, tapped into my gut instinct, and, my higher self said, you need to go. You need to do this. And at the time, even though the career was progressing, I wasn't really happy, right? I wasn't being satisfied in the way that I was doing my life there. And here was an opportunity for me to be mentored by who I thought was this incredible person. I can work on being an entrepreneur, live on the East Coast, my first time moving out of California. So that's how that whole thing started.
Wow. I saw some stuff online that said that the Dalai Lama gave his blessings to NXIVM. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes. It's actually on the documentary, and you can see them meeting.
Did he know what he was doing, or did he just give his blessings?
So, I can't speak to what they actually knew, but, Keith and Allison, they flew to the Dalai Lama to meet with him, to have him come. And I think he was not very interested at first, or he just said he needed to meet him. And then they met, and the Dalai Lama flew to Albany and gave him a sash and basically co-signed NXIVM. And also, too, it's known that the Bronfman billionaires, the heiresses, Sarah Bronfman, she was involved. And there was a large donation that was made to the organization. So how and what influenced, I can't say. These are just some elements.
Yeah.
That are part of it.
That is scary. And Keith had many wealthy women in the organization, or I should say cult. Like I was reading many wealthy people. So they were just throwing cash into these courses like nothing.
Into the courses, financially backing a lot of different things. So
can you talk about the assignment that you were given by Allison Mack that ultimately led you to leave the cult?
Yes. So as far as the red flags, to circle back to that, when I went into that situation, I wasn't part of the hive mind of like the cult. I was going there for my own self-interest, to heal myself, become an entrepreneur, create this T-shirt company. I was never planning on, I'm going to live in Albany forever. This is my dream. I thought of it as like, I'm in this sorority, and I'm going to humanitarian college. That was my perception of my experience and my intention. But I did started to see some red flags with Keith, just some interesting things, because, I've come from experience with having to deal with predators and seeing what that looks like. So at a heightened,
he made everyone kiss him on his lips, male or female.
Men and women.
That was
kissed him on the lips. Yes.
Was he bisexual, or?
I don't know. And, and I didn't want to judge that. I thought, oh, well, maybe they're just on a different level of intimacy and vulnerability than I am. Okay, I'm not going to judge this. But he would make jokes about sex a lot, and just when people tend to do that, you have to see like, why are they doing that, right? Where you're desensitizing it, making it a big deal. And so there were several other little things that weren't super alarming, but I just was like, that's kind of odd. And at the end of the day, I'm a survivor of life. And so I'm not just, even though I was in, right? I was committed, but ultimately my intuition is going to be always what I listen to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So intuitively, you just knew something
was off.
Yeah.
I was sussing them out. And so basically, Allison was in San Diego doing a play, and she had told me she wanted to call me and we were going to have a chat. I was in Albany at the time. And I'm like, okay. But I'm thinking, oh no, what did I do? And she calls me, and automatically my spidey senses are going off. And she starts with, "You've been so amazing. Everybody loves you. You fit right into the community."
Love bombing.
Oh, yes. Love bombing. And I'm just waiting for it. Like my intuition is just like, okay, like let's just hear this. And she basically says that she wanted to give me this special assignment, that it was an honor and a privilege, that no one ever really gets this opportunity, and that her and India have done it. And she says that the special assignment is to seduce Keith and have him take a naked picture of me to prove that I did it.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And what did you say to that?
Well, first I was in shock. I was just like, oh my God, like, what is this? I was in my little like basement room in Albany with my cat, just like, and honestly, I can laugh about it, but it was like devastating. I lost my breath for a moment. The walls started spinning, and it was completely an ego death. Like just everything of my old identity just destroyed in that one moment. And I asked her, I don't understand. Why would I do this? Like, this is like really weird, because, Keith was supposed to be my mentor. Like, what? It's like seducing your teacher. Like, why would I do that? And then she said, if you do this assignment, it'll get rid of all of your issues around having been sexually abused.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was a huge red flag.
Oh, that was the end of it. that was the end of it, because not only was that, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but not only was that bullshit, but it was her trying to abuse and hurt my inner child, who she was already very well aware of what my inner child had experienced. Yeah. So then for me, that just pissed me off. Not like raged, inner rage. It was like my mama bear, protector over myself, just came to life. But at the same time, I had to turn on Ninja Jess, because at this point they have collateral. I have friends involved, and the realization that she is serious. She expects me to do this assignment. So I had to become a ninja and figure my way out.
Wow. And you sure did. I want to ask you, like, I'm so fascinated with like the skin branding, because I think that is just absolutely fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. Did you know anyone personally in the cult that got branded by Keith?
With the branding, they originally sell it to you as like a tiny little, like a tattoo, like a sorority tattoo. They do say brand, but they really like downplay it. Like they make it seem like it's like the size of a dime, and that it's
pretty big from what I saw.
Yes, and they said that it's a design that represents all of the elements. So I had known that people had them. I personally hadn't seen one at that time, and so Keith didn't see. He always got to keep his hands clean, can make the women do the things for him. So there was a doctor, Daniel Roberts, who I had lived in the house with, and I had been friendly with, and was helping her with things, and come to find out she was the one administering the brands with like the cauterized knife.
Oh my God. So she was the one that was actually doing it. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that is crazy. I was looking online at some of the photos of it, and because it had his initials.
Yeah, his initials and Allison's initials.
So in 2019, Keith was arrested in Mexico by U.S. officials and then brought back to the U.S. And what happened then? How did you get involved?
So before his arrest, I went back to Hawaii and that's just where I wanted to be, and just kind of like went there to heal, had no money, had 2 friends there, and just created a whole other life there. And the FBI, I had a lawyer at the time who wanted to just help take down NXIVM, and they said that the FBI wanted to meet with me. So they flew to Maui to meet with me for 24 hours.
Wow.
Came back, and they asked if I would be a witness in this case. And so then I moved back to LA, and I was going back and forth to New York, even before Keith got arrested. So when he got arrested, there were 2 Jane Does on the arrest warrant, and I was actually the Jane Doe number 2.
So yeah, you literally just transcended so much through that whole experience. What can you say to people that are watching or listening that, you know, have had traumatic childhoods, have joined a cult, and don't know how to live again and how to go out into the world, and they're fearful of anything that may be self-help?
Well, you know, I think, you know, we use this topic of, having joined a cult, and, you know, me being able to speak on that specifically, but really anything can be a cult. A family can be a cult, a relationship can be a cult,
Sure.
a school can be a cult, politics, many different things where it all goes back to manipulation and mind control, right? And so sometimes the trauma is what's controlling our mind, right? So if we don't heal the trauma, then we're operating from a space that has that filter. So that fear of whether it's abandonment, or if we were like physically abused or beaten, that's a filter that we're going to be operating from. So really, I think the first step for anyone to go on this path of finding their freedom starts with going inward and doing the work. And doing the work is not one way, but it's just, there's many different ways to get there. And it's usually many different things that takes you there, but it's choosing to sit with yourself. Like no gimmicks. And yes, you can meditate. You know, it's not outside of yourself. It's really just sitting in your shit, sitting in the fire.
I agree. In 2019, God, everything is a blur. Just the time and time is such an illusion. But I just remember, you know, I had a breakdown several years back before the pandemic where I was just so tired of the entertainment industry and going to auditions and doing all this and just being in LA. And I went to India. And I just sat with my shit there in the Himalayas. And that was the best healing that I gave myself, is just getting out of what you're used to and going into a completely different culture and just sitting with yourself. And I always tell people that's the best way to just handle whatever shit they're going through, is just, it doesn't have to be India, but just go to a country that you don't know the language and it's a totally different culture, and just sit with yourself. There will be shifts.
Absolutely. Whenever you're doing something where you're jumping into the unknowns, I think that's what I'm really good at, even though it's not necessarily always fun. And that's what most people fear because we're conditioned, right? We have to live a life a certain this way, or if we don't do this, then X is going to happen. But when you challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone and do something that you're scared to do, you see what you're made out of. You know, I think the way to build character is through resiliency, is through by being challenged. So if you're constantly staying in your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. You're not going to be able to have that power and that will of knowing yourself. So I think the best way for people to get out of their fear is to face their fears. And for some, that's a little too intense and they have to start somewhere. Just do something different, you know? Just mix it up a little bit. Even just visualize and dream like what you want your life to be. And journaling, That's one of my number one tools always that I recommend, you know, because we can judge ourselves. We're afraid of being judged. But when it's just you, the pen and the paper, some of the best therapy you'll ever have.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't cost you much. Go to 99 Cent Store. You know?
Right? We don't need these organizations, these expensive organizations. We don't need to be mind controlled. We don't need all this. I mean, it's literally a cult, like self-help cult. You know, we just need to turn within.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think sets me apart from a lot of the other people that were involved in this that, you know, allowed me to get out in the way that I did is that I always trusted my intuition, because that's always what saved me in life. And so, you know, we can go take courses, you know, it's fine, you know, and instead of with fear, it's just like go in there to get what you need out of it and then take it,
Done.
you know,
Yeah.
just having discernment, having your own self-awareness and trusting yourself over anything, because people can have the best of intentions for you, your family and whatnot, but you know what's best for you.
Absolutely.
And everything that you need is inside of you. And when you can tune out the noise and really just trust that and do the work to also make sure what you're listening to within yourself is for your highest self and not the self-sabotage, like that's the path forward, in my opinion.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Jess, for being a fiery, bold, amazing soul and for sharing your story on my show. You're going to help so many people that are listening and watching. How can people find you?
So they can order the book, The Untouchable Jessica Joan, The Downfall of NXIVM. It's available on Amazon. They can, if they want to sign a copy, they could DM me at The Siren and the Sunflower. Yeah, and there's a lot of other things in the works right now. So, and I'll be sharing that. Acting, modeling, writing, poetry, many different things. And I'll be doing pop-ups to promote the book, and I'm creating a lot of different things. So just follow me on Instagram and you'll see what I'm up to.
What's your Instagram?
The Siren and the Sunflower.
Great. Can you look into the camera and say a very exuberant, I love my life?
Okay. I love my life.
Yes. I love my life too. Thank you for everyone that tuned into this episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe and see you in the next episode.
Yay.